Well, joining us now with his take is 10 News political analyst Dr. Ed Lynch. Dr. Lynch, thank you again for joining us here tonight.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so everybody was watching. The president's talking about Ukraine. Did he address the situation in Ukraine as well as he could or should have?
Well, I thought it was a speech in which he gave considerable comfort to the Ukrainian people. I'm not sure how much comfort he gave to the American people in this speech, but he talked about increasing sanctions. He talked about pumping more oil in the United States, opening up leases, releasing some from the reserves. The trouble is that much of this was reversing policies that he himself put in place before this conflict, closing some of those leases, shutting down the Keystone Pipeline. So he's pivoting, but he's pivoting back towards where we were before he made changes.
Okay, so I'll come back to Ukraine and the sort of the whole world watching him tonight to see what he's going to do with this crisis. But let's get to domestic policy. How did he do on things like crime and inflation and infrastructure and the things that have sort of been the domestic policy since he took over?
Okay, well, infrastructure is probably the success that he likes talking about the most, and with some good reason. I mean, it was a successful effort and a bipartisan one. But on inflation, really all he offered was another plea for Build Back Better, a massive spending program which is usually done to combat unemployment, not to combat inflation. On crime, he had the chance for some strong bipartisan support in talking about fund the police, leaving behind some of the left in his own party. But then he coupled that with more restrictions on guns, which destroys any opportunity for bipartisan support.
Because the Republicans will never go for that.
That's right. And some Democrats will not go for it either, like Joe Manchin.
Sure,
yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And so then I'm curious about your overall take on the speech, and I want to save time for very quickly the Youngkin effect. But so how presidential did he look? How much did he look like a world leader tonight, just in your expert opinion as a political analyst?
Well, he did a good job with the speech itself. There were no real stumbles. There weren't any obvious gaffes. He had a number of applause lines built into this. So as far as that went, it was an effective speech. But he sounded a lot like he did while he was a candidate, when he was trying to appear more moderate. And I think that's what the Democratic leadership wanted. They wanted to pivot back towards the center, and they got it in the speech. Whether they get it in the follow-up to the speech is going to make or break the midterm elections.
Yeah, they want him to be less left. They want the party to be less left because they've got a better chance of getting elected if they can run a little bit more in the center.
Well,
when the members of Congress are up for election in a year.
That's right. I mean, the polls so far have shown that the way he is governing is hurting his approval rating and the approval rating of Democrats in Congress.
Okay, very quickly, you have mentioned something called the Youngkin effect. What is it, and did you see it tonight?
I did. The emphasis that the president put on getting back to some sort of normal after COVID, getting children back in school, people back to the office, lifting some mask mandates. I think all of that was connected with Glenn Youngkin's unexpected victory here in Virginia. So Virginia played a pretty sizable role in the speech tonight, I thought.
So he's kind of observing what's been successful here in Virginia, or popular here in Virginia, and then implementing that into some of his policy.
That's right.
Okay, Dr. Ed Lynch, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brittany?
President Biden covered a lot of topics tonight, everything from the war in Ukraine to inflation, infrastructure, and more. We're working for you to get you the latest on all of these pressing issues. Stay up to date on air and online at WSLS.com or download our free 10 News app.